Welcome to Duality Gamecast. Today's episode, our top 3 best games of 2014.
Welcome to Duality Gamecast. I'm Matt.
And I'm William.
Today is a top 3 episode where we take a look at the best games of 2014. Alright, let's begin with number 3. William, what do you got?
My number 3 was Five Tribes. It was one of those games that it did what other games had done in the past, simple kind of worker placement game, but it added that Moncala mechanic and the fact that you're moving stuff on the board instead of placing it, and it gave it just enough of a twist that with its simple mechanics and its like kind of easy gameplay, I've enjoyed it. I think it's one of the games we played the most this year, honestly, and it's because I greatly loved it.
Yeah, it almost made my cut. That was a good pick. One of the things that amazed me about that game was it doesn't start out super complex, and the farther you get into it, the more brain burner you got.
It gives you that chance, like when you're starting out new, the game eases you into the gameplay even. So like first gameplay, you're like, okay, this is simple, Then at the end, by the time you understand it, that's when the real meat starts happening, and it's a good game to like start the game right out with. I feel like because of that.
Very good, very good. My number 3 was Diamonds. Diamonds is a new spin on trick-taking games. Really won me over because it's not just a basic trick-taking game. It added special powers to the suits. Mm-hmm. So it injected a gameriness into what could be considered a very mundane sort of game. But where they won it over for me was I could probably play this game anywhere, anytime, any group. You know, you wouldn't have to be a casual gamer or a hardcore gamer. This is a game you could play anywhere.
I agree, yeah, and it's a trick-taking game with components. That's what, like you have the little diamonds. I think that little bit of tactile extra bits, yeah, takes it up that extra step for me too. It lets you go from, I enjoy trick-taking games, there's something to do, but they almost, usually, I'm not really into card counting. So for me, usually they're kind of a passive game where I'm always just kind of looking at the best thing in my hand. And this made it give that extra little bit where you can kind of jab people, you can try to take out the leader. And so yeah, I approve. Good number 3.
All right. Number 2. What's your number 2?
One that kind of surprised me because I wasn't too excited about it at first. Star Wars Imperial Assault. I like playing Dominion. We kind of got out of playing it for a while. Star Wars to me brought that back. The reason why I probably didn't make number 1 is it doesn't quite feel Star Warsy enough for me, but it was an incredibly fun game. I love the dungeon delving aspects of it. I like that the campaign parts of it aren't just about going in and killing monsters, they're about holding points, and it makes it feel more tactical. It makes it feel like you're involved more in the story, the branching paths, all that stuff. Not to mention the little figures, comes a little Darth Vader, you get try to fight him and lose all the time. I've been having a blast with it.
Yeah, that game's a lot of fun. Great component quality, and it plays off 2 of my driving geek impulses. It's a heavier game because it has the tactile components, and there's a fair number of rules to the game. But it also has all those wonderful miniatures, and that's like the kitty geek in me, and it's like, yay, I get to move probe droids and the stormtroopers around. Lots of fun. I like that game quite a bit.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is technically a reprint, but it came off a very successful Kickstarter reprinting, and I think got a lot more buzz this time around than the first time it went around, and that's Lost Valley.
Oh!
Lost Valley is a gold mining themed game. It's very kind of sandboxy. Everyone's a prospector. You're going out into this wilderness, and the board changes every time. Mm-hmm. And you're exploring, and you can mine gold. You can pan for gold. You can hunt furs. And the object is just to get back to base camp with the most money to win. But it's different every time. There's even a level where you can have special skills and gain experience and get more skills. There's different strategies. I can think of at least 3 different sort of strategies to pursue. You're buying equipment. You're reacting to how the board state changes. Just a really solid game. Really enjoyed this one, and it came out of nowhere for me because I had never heard of the first edition of this game, but I really liked that game.
To me, the components were a little bit on the underside for it, but I've had a lot of fun with the game. It has the cool aspect that you're basically building the world as you go. So an adventurous person can completely construct how they want the map to be, basically. And it has the cool thing where you're building gold mines and stuff like that, but other people can come in and basically mine from you. So it has this fun thing where what you do, even though it's kind of a sandboxy open game, everything you're doing is affecting what everybody else is going to do. Because as soon as you start doing something, it's like, well, I can just hop in there and take his stuff. That sounds cool. And so it has this fun interactivity that on the surface doesn't look like it has. And good pick. Good number 2.
All right. Here's the big one. Our number 1 best game of 2014. William, what'd you pick?
I went with Zaya, Legends of a Drift System. Mind blown. This is a sandbox game. This is a game that you can just run little trade routes. You can go out and blow everybody up. You can hunt down NPCs. If you haven't seen our review, you should definitely check it out. Space theme, exploring, fun. Miniatures are awesome. It's not one of these things where you're building space as you go, so the person who's most aggressive gets to kind of set up the world, but everybody else gets to kind of follow suit and take advantage of what they revealed. It has cool things where you can blind jump and end up in the middle of a star and explode yourself. No player elimination, even though there's kind of like player death in a way. You respawn more or less.
Kind of reset. Yeah.
And the further along in the game you are, the more time you have kind of down when that happens. So at the beginning, it just gets you right back in, but it lets people dogpile the guy who's on top. The whole point is to get to X number of victory points. You can get victory points for doing pretty much anything. Killing people, selling a bunch of goods.
Rolling 20s.
Dylan's done that quite a few times. That's been his goal, is roll the dice as much as possible. Yeah. So I feel like I should go on for an hour and a half about it, but it's definitely my number 1 game. I wish we played it, 2 or 3 times more a day. How about you, Matt?
Hold on to your hats. My number 1 also is Zaya, Legend of a Drift System. I know, right? Yeah, just a fantastic game. You pretty much covered it, but I wanted to mention accessibility. Like, anybody who enjoys board games can play this game.
Yes.
Because there's so many options. This game I've seen on some of the podcasts and stuff I follow, it's been their top pick up and deliver game, which is just one little part of the game. Yep. But it's so valid that you could just play that strategy in that game. And there's so much other fun stuff going on, because some people hate pick up and deliver games. Mm-hmm. But there's so much fun other stuff going on. You can have 4 different types of gamers at the table playing this game and having fun playing it differently.
Absolutely.
And that makes it just awesome. How could that not be number 1? So, good list. What were some good games that almost made your list?
One of the games that didn't make my list was Istanbul. Mm-hmm. I enjoy that game. To me, it and 5 Tribes have a similar vibe, even though mechanically they're different and everything like that. They both have that same cool mechanic of you're not placing a worker, you're like moving around the board, and the actions you take can kind of change what other people are going to do and what you can do in the future. It was edged out by 5 Tribes for me. It'd probably be like my number 4. They're kind of interchangeable almost. To me, that's the one that it's like a smoother, silkier version of 5 Tribes. So I think I like the 5 Tribes one a little bit more because of the gaminess of it. How about you? What's some stuff that didn't make your list?
I'm in a similar vein. Istanbul. There were 3 that really I wanted to put on the list. 5 Tribes, Abyss, and Istanbul.
Abyss.
So these are all either Euro or more in the Euro bent of types of games. But they're all innovative too, which I thought was really cool. Obviously, we already mentioned the 5 Tribes, Mancala mechanic. Istanbul's, I think you originally called it worker movement, which is a good name for it because you're not really worker placement. But and then Abyss is just, it's its own thing. Like, it's really neat how unique it was. Like, the whole economy of the game hinges on everyone else, what they do for you. You know, there's no real way to make money in that game on your own. Just a really unique game. They all had themes that interested me. Now, how much they came out in each game, varying degrees, but just really good game. 2014 was a really solid year for board games. games. Like,
Yeah.
ton of games. Ton of games. I'm going to get a couple fun facts. Dead of Winter, which we did not mention, place is number 20 rank on Board Game Geek, which to be 1 year old and be number 20 is huge. Splendor, which we also didn't mention, which was, it was at the beginning of the year, so maybe it suffered a little from that.
I think it was even like our first review, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Don't watch that review. It was rough. But anyway, it's a good game. I don't know. I think it suffers in the depth and replayability area.
Yeah, because it's good. I mean, it's picking up chits and spending them.
But Dead of Winter only has about 4,100 rankings or votes or ratings. Splendor has twice that. Right. So these are two really big games. And we didn't mention either one of them on our list. So let me transition there. What's a game you wish you had played from 2014 they haven't yet got to play?
The Lords of Zidit, Yidit, whatever, however it's pronounced. Right. That game looked like it had a lot of cool mechanics and interesting, like a different way to do stuff. It's a kind of a resource management game, but you're moving around too. It looked like it had a lot of cool stuff going on. And I wish that I managed to get in there and dive into it and play it, but we didn't manage to fit into our schedule, I guess.
That's one I would like to play too. Mine is, I already mentioned Dead of Winter. Dead of Winter, it's done really well. It's been very successful. But the one thing that reviewers keep mentioning about it is they have a crossroad card mechanic where it's a semi-cooperative game. You're survivors in a zombie apocalypse, and everyone has a secret kind of victory condition, plus there's a group condition, and there can be traitors. But there's also this mechanic they introduced where, when it's your turn, someone else is drawing this crossroad card, and if you do certain things on your turn, it could trigger this card that kind of moves the story along and changes the game. So it's basically like other people have things to do on your turn. Other people care what you're doing on your turn.
And it kind of splits up that whole like Dungeon Master, Game Master, whatever you think theme, but like putting it on the other players on off turns, which seems like it gives you that extra little bit of kind of like AI running that the human being can manipulate for you.
I'm very intrigued about that. We still got lots of time, still want to play that game. All right, so I saved the best or worst for last. We're going to talk real quickly about either the worst or most disappointing game that we played in 2014. What was yours?
All right, so for me, I'm going to go with overrated. The game wasn't bad, but for the amount of interest it got, I was surprised. When I played it, I was surprised. And that's Camel Cup, however you want to say it. I think that everyone got really excited about the pyramid dice release mechanic because it just felt like a different version of Horse Fever, for lack of a better term. I mean, it's a simple race game. You're doing a little bit to affect the race. It's just because it's a live race, every turn you're choosing whether or not try to like advance the board or how you want to place your bets. It had some interesting stuff, but it wasn't a bad game. It just, for how much people were talking about, how much people were interested in it, I know when I played it, I was like, oh yeah, that was fun. But it didn't give me the like, oh my god, this should have won all the awards. This is the best game ever. It was a disappointment because I had high expectations, I guess, coming into it.
Kind of a real light game. Kind of, it lacks any of the real player impact on the game that Horse Fever had, right? I mean, it doesn't, or most.
Well, yeah, I mean, because you can put a tile down on the board that if they land on it, they go forward or backwards. But you aren't like, Horse Fever's played on multiple rounds, you're buying stuff, you're building up, and it shouldn't be directly compared to Horse Fever all the time, but that's the closest analog I have. The thing is that because it's one race, and you still are kind of very much whims of the dice, it's basically, it's a betting game. And you can kind of affect the odds, but you can do something thinking it's going to help you, and then it bites you in the butt. So you don't have quite the tight control, I feel, that you did in other games. So fun, but overrated.
I'm inclined to agree. I'm going for just worst. Like, this is a game that was published in 2014 that we played. we reviewed it too, that I just really didn't enjoy, and that was 11sies.
Okay.
This was originally a Kickstarter game. It's in stores now. I've seen it. It's a card game. The theme is tea time.
Yes.
You've got spoons and teapots and blah, blah, blah. It's just not enough game, and it's not enough theme. I mean, you could complain about the theme, but I'm not even trying to do that. The game doesn't feed the theme, like, at all. There are games that came out this year that were very successful, or in 2014, about, dressmaking and going to balls and, those were very successful, and I think they probably merged their theme and their systems a lot better. 11 was just kind of boring, and the color palette and the graphic design also were very boring for me. They're just really disappointing in general.
Yeah, I feel like what they did is someone came up with a basic mechanic. I could be wrong, but it feels like someone came up with a simple mechanic, and then was like, well, what should we call it? And they're like, well, we always use these little cubes. Those kind of look like sugar cubes. Let's go with T, like, for the counters. And I like, that's what it feels like. It feels like it was all based around like, well, what's the easiest command to do? Those little square wooden cubes. They look like sugar cubes. That's our theme, guys. And you're right. The art, I mean, I don't want to just keep harping on it, but the art it's like almost monochromatic. It was all really simple. It was a game that, even like, I think we talked about in a review, like the back of the cards look like old style cards. It's just, it has like something that, I think you said this in the review too, it feels like something your grandmother would play.
Yeah.
And as a result, I'm not my grandmother, so it wasn't something that I really enjoyed. Right. I agree, that probably was a letdown.
Yeah. Well, that's our top threes and other things for 2014. We'll be coming back very soon with some more lists and discussions around games. We'll be talking about theme real soon, so check that one out. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So that was our top 3 list of best board games of 2014. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments below what your best games of 2014 were. Click on me to subscribe, and thank you to all these people for helping out.
Oh my god, I look taller than you too, Matt. It's a miracle!
Yeah. Alright, one thing I had was pretending to be taller than you on video.